It is my great pleasure to welcome back for a time with Teepa, a guy who actually in my world doesn't need a lot of an introduction because he has done what I consider unbelievable. I mean, truly an unbelievable act, which is he runs, but he runs with his wife, and his wife used to be able to do the running, but now there's the running plus the pushing,
Right.
but still happening after how
Yes.
many years, Tony Copeland-Parker?
She was diagnosed 10 years ago this past April.
So for 10 solid years, you took what you two used to love doing mutually and you kept it up.
Yes, we did. And we
Yeah.
combined that with our love for traveling.
Yeah. So we did a first talk a while
Right.
back, a few years ago now. I mean, that's
Hmm.
been a couple, like, few years.
Yes, it has
And
been.
at the time, I'm trying to remember, I think Pat was still able to get up and go, but the speed was slow. But sometimes you would push her, and sometimes she would do it herself.
Right. That's
But you
correct.
were doing
Right.
marathons,
Marathons. Yes.
like
Hmm.
marathons, like
26.2
20,
miles.
26.2 miles. Yes,
Right.
I said at the time I do half marathons because I need to get up and walk the next day. And
Oh, right. There you
I don't have
go.
the skill that you do. So you were doing marathons, but you were doing them all around the world.
Yes. 82 different countries we visited.
82 different countries at that point. So at
Right.
that
Hmm.
point, you were at 82
Right.
and you were doing these marathons. And you were also raising awareness about what was possible as a couple once one of the partners develops dementia, and what was possible for Kat by not letting go of what was a love and a commitment and an enjoyment. And so you guys, how many at that point, if you think back, how many miles are we talking about then?
How many miles?
Yeah,
Well, we
more than I
did.
can imagine. I know that.
Yes, yes. She's done 89 marathons, and I've done 69 marathons, and we've done road races of various different sizes and shapes. She's been able to, while she was running, she did a marathon in all 50 states. And then when she was starting to have problems running, she still ran a marathon, a half marathon in 43 states. And then I pushed her in what I call an adult size stroller, which is
Mhm.
named the Catmobile.
I love it.
And we finished up this past April doing our 50th state as a half marathon
Wow.
in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Yep.
Milwaukee.
Yes.
Oh, I was just
Yeah.
there not long ago.
Oh,
That,
really? Oh,
oh
right.
yeah. I was in Green Bay.
Hmm.
Super wonderful. So what's really wonderful is how your life journey and your journey with your wife has changed, but it hasn't ever stopped you
No,
or
no,
her.
no. And I think that's important for everybody to know that the diagnosis is not a death sentence. It's a
No.
life lesson, and there's a lot of life to live.
Yeah.
And we've been living it as full as we can.
Wow. So what's your resting heart rate, Tony? Let's be honest here. What's your resting heart rate?
52, usually.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So one of the things that happens when you do these marathons, I'm betting, or half marathons now,
Hmm.
is that it helps you cope with living with dementia. I
Right,
mean, because you are. I mean, you're living in the life and you have a lot of life to live.
right.
And so what you haven't done is give up your life, but you've committed your life to this journey. And so you've done 50 states, but you've also done how many countries?
We've run a race in 35 countries and all seven continents. That's including Antarctica.
You did
And
Antarctica?
yes, we did. Yes, we
Oh my
did.
heavens.
Yes.
I don't know anyone who can, you're my first. You're my first that has allowed me to say, I know somebody who did half marathons or marathons in all seven continents.
Right, right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's important for you to find things that the caregiver
Mhm.
loves to do. And then also, if you could find something that the caregiver and the one that's been diagnosed loves to do together, then you've got the cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah, you
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
And behind you, you have some amazing pictures of your life together and some of the marathons and half marathons
Right.
and
Right.
everything else.
Yeah.
But you have some hanging over here things that are pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we have medals throughout our apartment of all over, big medals of when we did the Boston Marathon and when we did the six major marathons in Australia and on and on. So we just have them all over the place. And she loves to walk around and pick them up and then drop them. And then
Well,
I
it's
put
a
them
good
back
thing
to
for
where
you.
they
You're
were.
getting flexibility in addition to your
Right.
endurance. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful that you've got that going down, coming back up skill.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Cool. So, Tony, when we first talked, you had done a book,
Right.
and then this journey has continued for years now, and I
hmm
mean years,
Yeah,
and you have done a second book.
right,
So, show us the second book because I remember the first book. And so now we have a second book.
right. Yes, what it was is the first book was the first 5 years of
Mhm.
us, and that was called Running All Over the World,
Yep.
Our Race Against Early Onset Alzheimer's. And I wasn't going to write another book,
Because you were
but
done. That was it.
right,
That's
I
all you
was
needed to
done.
do. Yeah.
But I was continuing to journal because I found that journaling was very important for me, for my well-being, to write down my feelings. And the next thing I knew, the second 5 years, I had enough to produce another book. And then this one is called um, One Footstep at a Time.
Mhm.
Our race against early onset Alzheimer's continues.
Yeah.
And it's the second 5 years. And it has some travel. We
Mhm.
continue to travel a little bit in the first part to Costa Rica. We went to Scotland and we did a race there, and we went over to Inverness and looked for the Loch Ness Monster and all that. So we had some fun. And then it became more of within the United States.
Yeah.
And we've been traveling United States. We still travel. We actually once a month we'll pick a race somewhere. I have four wonderful ladies that help me
Okay.
care for her, and two of them are known as travel companions, paid
Super.
travel companions. So they we put
Now,
a
Tony, that's wonderful. And so how did, because I know that other people really crave to go traveling, but they know they can't handle it alone and they don't
right.
have a lot of resources. So as a sidebar here, how did you find those two women?
Well, what ended up happening was I had the four ladies,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to Craigslist and I put in travel companion because that's something I came up with as a thought. And I had a number of people that were interested in doing it, and I interviewed them. And then the other two of the ladies that worked for me already said, "Hey, what are you talking about? Or maybe I could do that." And I
That would
told
be
one
fun.
of
I
them,
want to do
right,
that instead of just what I'm doing. I'd like to do
right.
more.
Yes,
Yeah. And
absolutely. And
something
one of
different.
them used to be a runner. So
Ah,
yeah, so she ended up helping me
wonderful.
run the last race that we did together for a half marathon. Yeah, and
Nice.
she hadn't done a half marathon in years and years, but she trained for it and did a great job. We had a lot of fun,
Wow.
absolutely. And
And
also, Catherine had a lot of fun because
that's what I hear.
she remembered the whole experience of racing. We had signs on the stroller, and people were going by, Team Cat and cheering her on, and she was cheering them on. So we had a great time. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I hear is there's joy.
Yes, a
And this
lot.
moments of joy phenomena. I mean, there's a lot of work to plan to go do a marathon, let alone somewhere else. It's hard
Mhm.
enough in the morning for a half marathon for me to organize myself so I have
Right.
everything I need and I don't
Yes.
forget important things. But
hmm
you're doing it long distance and you're doing it for yourself, your partner, and a second partner.
Right.
And you're arranging to make sure that if things are a little rocky in the morning, you have a plan, you have a game plan, you have a backup plan.
hmm
Wow. But the really cool part is I see a lot of satisfaction in your life for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Wow.
was, we were walking the halls the other day I'll talk about that a little bit later in terms of where we're living right now.
Mhm.
But we were walking the halls the other day, and this lady walked up to me and she says, you should get a medal. And I looked at her and I said, Catherine doesn't smile that much anymore, but when she does, that's my medal.
That's your medal.
Yes.
You could have said, well, I've got a lot. You want to see them?
That's a
Come on in.
truth.
Catherine will show you around. She'll drop
Right.
you and pick them up.
Yep.
That
Right.
would be great exercise for you, some flexibility.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So your life has changed over these years. There's no doubt. But there's still some good stuff, I would think, for you. Because otherwise you wouldn't have the energy to write. You wouldn't have the
Right.
energy to journal. You wouldn't have the
Hmm.
energy to go on a trip. So you're in Georgia and you made it up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin
Right.
recently. So, I mean, having done those flights, there's the good news is you're outside of Atlanta, so you can
Hmm.
make it to the airport. The
Right.
bad news is the airport. Then you get to your gate and then you get on a plane. And there are some direct flights.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's what I assume you took a direct
Right.
flight because that was a good idea. And then you get off at Milwaukee, but then you go from that airport, which is an interesting airport to get in and out of. And then you go to a hotel and you settle in. How far in advance do you get there when you know you have a half marathon coming up? How many days do you plan out?
We get there the day before.
Do you?
Yeah, we get there the day before.
Wow,
And
boy, have you got a routine.
yeah, we have a routine. We've been doing this, for 10 years. She actually knows, still recognizes the fact that, oh, we're going somewhere. I got the bag starts getting packed up, the suitcase, and she's like, yes. She gets real excited going through TSA. Sometimes we even see the same agent.
Ah,
Oh, how you doing? Where you going this time? And she
oh,
perks up.
cool.
Yeah.
Relationship. Super
Right,
cool.
right, right,
We
right.
love relationships. We
Yep.
find that they make a big difference in the long run when you have good relationships with people
Hmm.
and you work with.
And the thing is that everybody within the travel industry is trained to help anybody and everybody with disabilities.
Yeah.
So they can sense that there's something there. Over time, it wasn't as apparent as it is now. She has a head drop and all that. And they ask if they could help, need a wheelchair, do you need, but I always say, no, she wants to walk because she walks 5 to 6 miles every single day still.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every
I mean,
single
we have
day.
people who can barely shuffle along and she's
Right,
out walking.
right. She
And
needs assistance, but still
right.
she does it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that means everybody around her staying fit too.
You're right. That was one of the requirements of the folks that I hired. I said, okay, you're going to walk for four
I
hours.
have,
You're probably going to do
yeah,
a mile or two an hour. You figure it out. What?
yeah.
But then they get a little competition going. They come back and they say, oh, we put in 3.5 miles today. I was like, all right, good job.
Good job. And are you starting to recognize that stopping and snacking?
Oh,
Right?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
Oh,
That fuel
absolutely.
consumption, you need to
Yeah,
put some fuel in the
absolutely.
tank so you can keep it going.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, super cool. So we have some friends here in Hillsborough I have one friend who has Lewy body and frontal temporal young
Hmm.
onset. I have somebody who has Alzheimer's and probably some frontal temporal young onset. And so they too require people, if they're going to not be with their spouse who's fit, they're going to have to be around somebody who's pretty fit because they don't sit
Right.
around.
No, they don't.
They don't monkey around. They've got things to do, people to see, stuff to happen, and you got to be on your toes.
Yes,
And you got to be
absolutely.
curious and you got to be
Hmm.
willing to travel in a minute.
Right,
And you got to keep
right.
your eyes open
Yep.
because suddenly it's like, did I just hear the door open? Okay, we're moving.
Right, there you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
But there's a real difference between, oh, I hear a door open, we're going, versus, oh my God, what is she doing at the door again?
Right,
That
right,
attitude
right,
matters. I
right.
mean, that willingness to sort of figure it out.
Yep, yep.
So, Tony, you've written this second book
Hmm.
and it's available on Running
With cat.
with
And
Cat,
that's CAT.
CAT,
Uh-huh.
and it's
.com.
.com.
Right.
And so
Hmm.
if people are interested, the book is available. And your first book is also still available on that
Yes,
website.
absolutely.
And it is super important that if you're in a caring role and you're feeling the pressure of like, oh, maybe this could be an inspiration. It's not
Hmm.
like you're going to take up marathoning. I didn't say that.
Right,
But
right,
I
right.
think there are things that you could choose to do attitudinally and behaviorally that could really change the dynamic for the two of you
Absolutely.
because you made
Absolutely.
those choices and they were hard choices sometimes.
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
The thing about the second book as opposed to the first book is that while we were traveling, while we were in the midst of what we were doing, I was doing some research, what's good for folks with Alzheimer's. And I was coming up with a list of things like, movement, exercise,
Music,
socialization,
socialization,
music, seeing new and exciting things.
being
And
outdoors,
right,
being
right.
out in
Yeah,
nature.
botanical gardens.
Yeah.
Wherever we would stop, we would always go find a botanical garden to go walk around because they say that that's good for you. So that was the first book, first 5 years. And then the second book, as we transitioned, I talk about how we found where we're living now, because it's a big deal. Where do you live? What
Where
does
do
a
you choose
person,
to live? And that's
right?
the thing. You're going to have to choose something because
Yes,
things are changing. So
right.
if you do it well, then you have choice, and
Yes,
choice matters, and planning
yeah,
ahead for that choice.
right.
So
So I
what
have a
was
whole
the,
chapter on that as
yeah,
to how we came up with the decision to live where we are
yeah,
and the back and forth that we had with management here, because unfortunately, folks with Alzheimer's, they want to put you in that, yes, that box and
that
that
contained,
special
that
building
block,
across the
that
street.
special base. And it's like,
Yeah,
that's going to be a disaster for
right,
somebody who's had the
right.
freedom to roam and freedom to
Yeah,
move and the support to move.
right,
You'll actually destroy who I am. I mean,
right,
you'll destroy my primitive brain because my primitive brain won't understand that.
right.
And my primitive brain is actually what's running a lot of systems without me thinking about it these days.
Mhm,
So to do that is harmful to me, not helpful. And
right,
so good for you for being an advocate
right.
and
And then
holding
the
the
other,
line and
right.
and doing what you can do to make sure that people hear her voice.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing, what I did was I went back and took the time to do more research to validate the things that I came up with and
Yep.
found a lot of good information
Yeah.
on those. And I included that in the second book. So if an individual is looking to say, oh, I wonder what sleep has to do with it. Well, I have a whole chapter on sleep. And because as you continue down this road, it becomes an issue. And
Yep.
if sleep's an issue, then on the flip side, how they handle the day and how they react to the day is also an issue.
Yep.
I
And
actually
how
have,
you handle the day and how
right.
you react to the day is also an issue because there's two brains involved here. And if
Right.
you need more brains involved, you got to train the brain before you get it involved.
Right.
So it knows what you're looking for. Because
Yep.
when you have helpers and they don't know what you're looking for, they'll do what they think. And it's like, oh no, you have a game plan already.
Yep.
You need to
Yep.
become a coach. And
Yep.
you're a good coach, I can tell.
Mhm. And if she's not getting sleep, then I'm not getting sleep.
Yeah.
And it's really important for the careger to get a good night's
Oh,
sleep
it
also.
is
Yeah.
crisis time.
Yeah.
Crisis.
So,
Nothing will make you less pleasant than I want to be with you
yeah.
than not
Yeah.
getting rest, except
Right.
not getting exercise for you. Either one of those will be bad news.
Yep. Yep. And unfortunately for Catherine, she also hit the lottery when it came to seizures. And
Oh,
we ran through that period of time with seizures. I actually have a quote in the book. I paraphrase a quote from Teepa Snow in the book about medications um, for seizures. I paraphrase and I say, you said, darn if you do, darn if you don't,
yep.
in terms of trying to use medications, because there are always side effects.
There
And the
are.
medication that was prescribed to her was Keppra, a long name for the drug,
Yep,
but
yep.
Keppra is
That was a
what they
brand
call
name.
it.
Yeah. Yep.
And the side effects were terrible,
Yep.
absolutely terrible. And we came off of it. And then I have another chapter talking about hydration and some other things that we can do to help out in terms of keeping the seizures at bay. And then, surprisingly enough, about a year ago, I went ahead and enrolled her in hospice care. And there's a whole chapter on that because everybody looks at hospice. Oh no, that means they're going to die within 6 months and da 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 da. Yeah, well, at the same time, there's a lot of help that
Mhm.
they have. I have a music therapist will be here this afternoon. I have a nurse that shows up once a week. I get supplies. And one of the nurses said, well, let's try this Keppra a little bit differently because they were giving you the highest dosage and trying to wean you down. Let's start the lowest dosage. So that's what we do. We have the lowest dosage. We
Cool.
do have some side effects, which is agitation and things like that, restlessness. And then I found another sleep medication, and I talk about that in the book, which is Belsambra. I
Mhm.
found an article that talks about the fact that that back in 1920, they said it was useful for folks with Alzheimer's and insomnia.
Yeah.
And in 2023, they are actually recommending it for folks with Alzheimer's because they figured out that if you get good night's sleep, even in the beginning,
Yeah.
then
Makes
it
a
slows down the
difference.
progression.
Yeah.
So, and it is working great.
Super.
We're getting 7, 8 hours of sleep every night. She is up and ready to go in the morning, have breakfast, and when the help shows up, they're out the door, and she's doing really well
Yay.
because of that. So,
Wow. Good job. Good job. Well, I hope lots of folks see the resource, decide to follow up with the resource, but most important, I hope they watch this and realize how much your decision to stay in this zone of figuring things out and moving forward with this positive way of being, I mean, really
mhm,
being, really impacts Kat's life, your life, and the life of people around you, and
right, right.
therefore what you have to offer the world. So
Yes.
Tony, thank you again for being the human being that you've become and you still continue to become. And thank you for doing the kind of work you do to build a community of care.
Well, I am blessed man every single day, and I try to pass on those blessings to others. And I hope that people find what I write about and what I have to say is important to them. And as added bonus, what we do is we have autographed copies of the book. So when you go to Running with Cat, that the first tab that you come to will ask if you want an autographed copy of the book, and I have them right here, and I uh, send them out from here. Or the next two tabs you go to, you will be linked to where you could find it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, and
Cool.
both books are there also.
Nice. Well, thank you for all that you do. And thanks to everyone out there who also supports someone they love and is making a difference. And if we can connect people up and make this work better, hey, that's what we all choose to do. Because,
Absolutely,
I can't change the destination, but we sure can change how we get there.
that's a true statement there, and you do a fabulous job of educating
Thank you.
everybody on that.
Well,
Yes.
thank you. And thank you, Tony. And thank you, Kat. I know
Right.
you're out there in the background, probably doing something with a
No,
carer.
she's in the halls with the caregiver.
I was going to say she's out
Getting
with a
her
carer right now.
right,
I know.
right.
Otherwise,
There,
we'd be sick looking at medals or doing something like
right.
that.
There we go.
So thank you. And everybody out there, take care with your care and take care of yourselves. Till next time.
Thank you.